Hello everybody, welcome. It's Tuesday, so that means it's time for Torn Tuesdays. I'm Justin, and this is my host, Cliff. He got himself a haircut, and he hasn't been feeling so well, so his voice is a little shot, so you might hear the occasional grunt and but that's Cliff for you. So we have...
Excuse me, what's Cliff for you?
Uh-oh.
What's a Cliff for you? Cliff is very, very busy with his San Pellegrino.
Oh, dear.
This stuff is so good, and it's very tart and tangy. Have you ever had one of these? Oh, hello, everybody. What's going on? What else do we have here? Yes. Learned Tomes of Learning. The Bookish Tome of Learning. And what else do we have here? A very incredible and useful reference, another bookish tome of learning. Yes, this is going to be very useful today.
Indeed. Well, welcome. We have so many wonderful people in the chat room. If you're watching,
Indeed we do.
If you're watching live with us, this is Torn Tuesdays. We're live at 5 every Tuesday from Meltdown Comics in Hollywood. We're streaming live on YouTube's Meltdown Comics channel, and we're in the attic of world famous Meltdown Comics.
Is that why
Frankenstein was an amazing limit? There's so much amazing, cool stuff here.
Is that why my visage all of a sudden looked so different?
Yes.
People are wondering I have these special shoes on that I'm wearing today. It must be what it is. Oh my God! Look at Frankie.
Yeah,
looks great.
And you know who else is in the chat room? Flying Calasuri. Which is, I always think that streaming technology has been amazing. But the fact that Calasuri is joining us in the chat room from 40,000 feet in the air, he's on a plane.
Really? You're on a plane right now, Mr. Calasuri.
He's literally flying on an eagle. He's the co-owner of TheOneRing has his own eagle.
That's really cool. Riding on the back of Guahir, the Wind Lord.
Hello from Portugal.
Oh wow! Are you kidding me? Look at. We've got people from all over the world here.
Xana Seb and Alitair and Hobbity Lass and Northerner and Dwina. And hello. Dwina waves to Cliff, but not me. So
Dwina, I love it when you wave, but we'll take it as a group hug type thing. That's a group wave.
Okay,
Thank
whatever.
you for that.
I see where your loyalties lie. I get it.
I
understand. I understand. So
now look at this. Look at this. The sound of refreshment. Listen closely, ladies and gentlemen. Ah, that's wonderful, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
Go ahead, Mr. Justin.
Can everybody hear and see us today? Well, we're getting our bearings, and we've got the chat room live at TheOneRing.net/live. We've got our IRC chat and our little video preview window, so you can actually chat with us and chat with the fans, and
it's all working.
That's how we're following along with you.
If you guys are watching this as an archive later on YouTube, the usual place to join the live fun is at TheOneRing.net/live. Although we appreciate you checking out the archives over on the YouTube channel, definitely join us live, because this is where all the interactivity happens. This is the innovative moment where you folks meet us folks, mind to mind, typing to typing, eye to eye.
This is my favorite part of TheOneRing is that talking with fans and meeting fans at conventions, but being able to chat with people online every week and getting a pulse of what's going on. What are people talking about? You know, like for the last 2 weeks, it's been Bofers and hams and things like that, and so this week we're going to talk a little bit about some of the backstory of some of the dwarves in The Hobbit. We talked about this last week, that we're going to do this series over the next couple of weeks of giving you a little context of who these dwarves are, why they're in the company, and
a little bit about their family line, about what their genealogy means to them, why their heritage really means something to them, and these dwarves are all interconnected somehow as they come together in the group known as Thorin and Company. But I think Thorin we'll save for last. We'll save Thorin as the last.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to begin our series of, reviewing all these great dwarven companions, because the only thing we really learned about them from The Hobbit that it's written from Bilbo's point of view, mostly, and we learn about these dwarves
has to know
from Bilbo's point of view, basically.
And we can tell that every dwarf has his own kind of opinion on everything
yes, he does.
Going on. So this will maybe give some insight into how the actors will carry these characters in the movie, because I think the movies present a unique opportunity that the books don't, where you get to see the facial reactions. Even if there's no dialogue and it doesn't deviate from the book, you can see the facial reactions and the body language of the dwarves in every situation. So I think the movies, the Hobbit films may actually be stronger than the Hobbit book.
In regards to how they characterize them?
Because there's so many characters, and you get so much more out of those characters through a film than a book. But
I would be cautious in making statements about the book you haven't read.
Okay.
But
before we jump in,
maybe there's something to that. I would say that there's not much characterization in the book, except that Tolkien says they have different colored hoods, and that's about it. They play different instruments, and they have different colored hoods, pink, blue, green, different things. But no, Peter Jackson had to really give the audience more than just different colored hats. He had to really give distinct likeness to each one of these dwarves, so they are unique individuals within the cinematic universe. So maybe there is something to that point that you make.
There's a bit of a stronger... And when I say personality, I mean it's the hair and the hats and everything. The beards and the mustaches. It's all of that. Physical, visual stuff informs an actor's decision of what he does with his arms. If the dwarves are standing there, do they just stand like this, or do they just stand like this? The actors themselves are infusing the characters with more than Tolkien has ever given us. And I think Peter Jackson has always been a great casting person, and he's had a great casting director. And I think that the successes of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit have been on perfect casting choices. And I think he intentionally cast a lot of all these actors as these dwarves to give broader life to the characters that even he couldn't imagine.
One half of the director's job is in the casting. Seriously, even a highly technical director such as James Cameron will tell you that. If you cast the wrong people for the part, you've sunk your own ship before you've even set it afloat. Do you know what I mean?
So we've got some new people in the chat room.
I see a lot of people repeating, and yes, you're welcome, Tolkien girl, for everything and anything for our audience.
We got Hobbit and Proud.
Hello,
do you
Earl.
Know
I see
what
Earl
we're
over there.
To do? I'm new here.
But there's Bofur's wife, and there's Northrunner. Hello, Pete.
Running Hobbit.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, what Torn Tuesdays is our weekly video show. We do it live. We're watching you chat with us live, and we give you all the latest updates on what's going on in Hobbit films and Hobbit books and what's going and reality shows, which we'll have more on at the end of the show.
And a lot of concurrent news and material of interest to sci-fi and fantasy genre audience in general.
Once in a while, we'll have a special guest, and once in a while, we'll give deeper, expanded background on what The Hobbit is and what's going on with either filmmaking or book-wise. It's a little bit of everything.
And a lot of recent news and developments with previous Lord of the Rings actors and what interesting new projects they're involved in after the trilogy. And, of course, correlated things with what The Hobbit is doing in the marketplace of big movies, which is big business. Here we are in the heart of Hollywood, and we have to bring it all back to where we are. Meltdown Comics, really wonderful place. The epicenter of all sci-fi, fantasy geekdom.
The home of Nerdist.
Right here.
I mean, everybody likes Nerdist, and they've got a BBC.
Where else would Nerdist go?
Yeah,
here. Meltdown. Exactly.
So I bring to this table here a purely fan, typical consumer. I've never read The Hobbit. I didn't read Lord of the Rings till after the movies came out. I came in
layman's terms.
And I'm coming into this completely like a normal person would. Mm-hmm. Like any Joe Schmo, any friend off the street, like, oh, I like Mr. Frodo. I might have a little more information and a little more appreciation than a lot of hipster people. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
and I come to the table with a little bit more of an academic and maybe scholarly, but certainly a more genre-specific, real power nerd approach to Tolkienisms, the ephemera of Tolkien, the publishing history of Tolkien, the languages, the philologist behind the fantasist. And I'm mostly interested in the power of storytelling. I come to it as the producer and the co-writer of Ringer's Lord of the Fans, which was
a published author. I mean, this guy's written books.
And
so,
thank you.
Like he's the smart, and I'm the pop.
We've got the Siskel and the Ebert. We've got the yin and the yang of sci-fi geek fantasy culture. But you know what? We can skip on a dime from a Star Wars conversation to a Game of Thrones conversation to what is J.J. Abrams doing. We all have these conversations here on this show. But it comes back to Tolkien. Right now, the filmmakers are still putting together the material for Episode 2 of the Hobbit trilogy, The Desolation of Smaug. Rumors continue to come to us that they're going to do reshoots in the next 2 months down in New Zealand.
Next month?
Next month.
Yeah.
See, they want to do it before the weather turns foul.
Yes, exactly.
Weather's going to turn wintry down
New
there.
New Zealand. It's autumn right now.
Southern Hemisphere,
and
of course.
And I think we saw a tweet from Ian McKellen last week saying that he was doing London, Canada, and New Zealand all in a month's time.
Oh, that's
which means more goodness with Gandalf.
Here we go. Well, let's take a look. Did you see
Balin's egregious panties has joined the chat.
There's a fellow here named Balin's egregious panties. Oh my goodness
I
gracious.
hope it's a girl. I don't hope
Really?
it's a guy.
Wait, I didn't
Not
know.
a fella.
I didn't know A, that Balin even wore panties, and B, I didn't know that his panties were too much one way or the other.
Yeah.
Much less being egregious. Egregious panties?
The only information we have on the trailer is that it's allegedly if Peter Jackson can meet a deadline, which I hear he's has been good at, that Man of Steel will have the Hobbit trailer. And I think one of the reasons is Man of Steel is having a worldwide release day and date. Same day. If you noticed, Iron Man 3, the new Iron Man, it's out in almost every country except America. I mean, it's already made $200 million around the world, and we haven't even seen it. I mean, the premiere's tonight at the El Capitan.
What, Iron Man 3?
Iron Man 3.
Actually, no, they had the premiere about 3 days ago.
Oh, yeah,
last 3 days ago. Yes,
Yeah.
I have to deal with Hollywood street closures because I live 2 blocks away from the theater.
Another movie premiere.
Oh no, it's
affects
disgusting.
my life.
I can't get to the subway. I need to walk a couple of blocks down to get on my subway. And I can't get to the station.
Cliff.
Oh, for heaven's sake! Listen to this. Listen to this. I'm gonna bring you down a peg or two.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me tell you something. We're gonna begin with dwarves here, beginning with Dwalin and Balin. This is our first 2 characters that we're gonna profile in the group of Thorin and Company because Dwalin arrives first. He's the very first person.
I like how you did that.
Even in the book, even in the movie, as in the book.
Isn't he the oldest?
Dwalin is not the oldest. You know, Thorin is the oldest.
Besides Thorin.
Thorin is definitely the oldest, and we're going to talk about the anachronistic way.
Oh no, Dwalin is the butch.
Dwalin is the butch, yes. Graham McTavish. I think if Graham McTavish were here right now, he would probably say, sure, I'll take that as a compliment, mate. He's a big man. He's a big fellow. He's a tall fellow with a very big musculature, and that's one of the reasons why he got cast in the role, because he's so athletic. And he is the warhorse of the Dwarven Company.
Directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yes, thank you very much. Hey, the play version of the Warhorse is coming to the Pantages Theater.
I know.
Very soon. I want to see that.
Hollywood.
I know. Anyways,
it's the only way
we're all
to
very
watch
excited
that
about
movie.
this. But the dwarves is somebody that we're going to bring right to your door, just as Dwalin was the first dwarf to appear at Bilbo's door. And in the book, he's the first to show up. And I was just looking him up right here in the Complete Guide to Middle-earth. And it says right here...
Tolkien Girl is right. The Man of Steel trailer used the Lord of the Rings music from
Yes,
Fellowship of the Ring.
Yes, it did.
Wouldn't that be a nice full circle? The first Man of Steel trailer last year used Fellowship of the Ring music, and then the Hobbit trailer is attached to Man of Steel when the movie came out.
You really?
That would be kind of.
Do you
nice,
think is it
nice
cyclical that way?
It'd be so synergistic. It melts my heart. I love synergy.
This is the first time that Bilbo encounters Dwalin in the book, and as soon as Bilbo opens the door, it says right here, quote, "I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting," he was going to say, when he saw that it was not Gandalf at all. He was expecting Gandalf to show up, and instead...
I can picture Bilbo, like, opening the door, like, what do you want, and then walking away.
It was a dwarf with a blue beard tucked into a golden belt, and very bright eyes under his dark green hood. As soon as the door was opened, he pushed inside, just as if he had been expected. He hung his hooded cloak upon the nearest peg, and "Dwalin at your service," he said with a low bow. "Bilbo Baggins at yours," said the Hobbit, too surprised to ask any question for the moment. That dialogue in that moment, captured by Martin Freeman in the movie, is exactly what Bilbo says in the book, but Dwalin's appearance is a little bit different. He doesn't bow. Does he bow? Does Dwalin bow to Bilbo in the movie?
I don't think so. He's just hungry.
He stands there and he's really, really tall and a bit imposing with his arms folded, and he says something about, "Are the others here yet?" And no, it's one of the other dwarves who says, "Are the others here yet?" Dwalin shows up and he starts eating Bilbo's dinner. He eats the fish head, eats the bones, grabs the cookies off the cookie jar off the shelf, and is eating everything in house and home. And you realize, oh, he's such a giant, big dwarf. He must eat like a machine. To keep that machinery going, he must eat and eat and eat and eat. He is the first to show up. But I've got some pictures that I sent you, and we're going to pull them up on the interwebs that you can see. Our fellow friend, Graham McTavish, plays Dwalin in an unexpectedly gruff, and
was he in
imposing way. Very imposing physical dwarf.
What was Graham McTavish in before?
He did a great voiceover for the animated movie Dante's Inferno, which was based on the video game. And Graham McTavish plays the lead, Dante, who goes down into the 9 circles of hell trying to save his lovely Beatrice.
Oh, the God of War clone.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, but he hasn't been in anything else that I would have recognized? You guys can look that up in the chat room. You've watched the Baggins sequence at the start of the film about 10 times now.
We're not connected on this Safari, are we?
You should be.
Nope.
It was working earlier.
Really?
Uh-oh.
No connection. I was just about to show you some pictures of Dwalin, and I was going to show you some other photos of the actor who plays him, side by side with the makeup and the complete beard look that was created for his character.
Yeah, really.
But now we've lost connectivity, so I'll just keep talking. When you look up Dwalin, you don't see much information in the Complete Guide to Middle-earth. It says that he was born in the Third Age, 2772. He was a dwarf of Durin's line, second son of Fundin. That means Balin was his older brother. Balin was the firstborn. Dwalin was the second-born son of Fundin. And that's okay. If you don't get the connectivity, I have the email right here with the pictures.
Okay.
I don't know if we can show them on the phone, but we probably can.
I'm trying.
That's okay. He's trying. Technology, jiggery pokery.
So he was a second-born?
He's the second-born son of Fundin.
Because usually the firstborn is alpha male like that. Mm-hmm. So he's got some issues that he's dealing with.
Usually is the firstborn who is alpha male. Dwalin is not represented in the book as that type of alpha male. We want to make this distinction. Peter Jackson and his design team at Weta put together this version of Dwalin, which is supported completely by Graham McTavish's...
Dwalin does bow in the film, yes.
Yes, he does bow in the film. Thank you, Miri.
So
was right.
So what was he? If this was the first dwarf that we see in the movie, was he completely different than what you imagined in your mind's eye all these years?
No, this is not the same dwarf that I imagined. The dwarf that I imagined in my mind's
blue beard, golden belt.
Do a Google.
Like a gnome?
You will see some weird
like
looking...
a garden gnome? Like a Smurf?
There's some photos of a dude who looks like a regular white guy with all beard and dwarf makeup, but he's got a blue beard. and it's on Google. You can Google Dwalin and look at the image search. You'll see this dude has a blue-colored beard. The rest of his hair is colored normal. Well, even more of an innovation came with the idea that there are tattoos, or that there's tattoo artistry going on in the Dwarven culture. Tolkien never mentions any tattoos on anybody, ever, at least not the dwarves. And here comes shaved head Dwalin with these great cool tattoo designs in this dwarvish language all across the top of his head. And there's something even more interesting, and I really wish I could show it to you if we get the connection. In the Battle of Azanul-Bazar, which is shown in flashback in the movie, when Balin is telling the story of how Thorin stood up against Azog, the Pale Orc.
Okay.
You'll see Dwalin in those shots with a crazy mohawk and a darker colored beard, just screaming and raging across the battlefield, side by side with Thorin. You'll see that in the flashback scene. It's really quite interesting, and that would have been a great segue to show you this this image. Here we go. I've got Dwalin facts and photos that I emailed you. Here we go. Look at this. This is the information that we get from Wikipedia, which is actually fairly concise. Dwalin was one of the 12 companions with Bilbo and Thorin on the quest for Erebor. He wore a dark green hood and a golden belt, had a blue beard, and like his older brother Balin, he played the viol. And all these musical instruments that the dwarves were very knowledgeable about. Dwalin lent his hood and cloak to Bilbo when they set out on their journey. After the events in The Hobbit...
Cloak and hood. So he's the guy that tosses, when Bilbo starts complaining, I need my jacket, I need it. Dwalin's the one shut up and here's the stuff.
No. In the film, it's actually Bifur who pulls out a rag and tears it off.
So that's a discrepancy.
That's different. But in the book, Dwalin lends a hood and a cloak to Bilbo when they begin their journey. And Dwalin ruled Thorin's halls in the Blue Mountains. He died in the year 4th Age 91 at the age of 340, which is really, really, really weird because it's unusual for a dwarf to live longer than 250 years. In Tolkien's Legendarium, Dwalin was one of the eldest, longest living dwarves. Most dwarves don't live past 250.
Do you think the ring had that effect on everybody in the company?
No, I don't think it did. No, there was no extension of that effect. Here you go. We have a side-by-side shot of Graham McTavish and Dwalin. There they are. Can you guys see that? I'm going to hold that right up to the camera and see if I can get closer. There we go. Dwalin and Graham McTavish. It's out of
focus.
Is it out of focus?
Yeah.
Oh, well. Let's see.
Oh, well.
We also have... we have a whole lot of popularity, waves of little popular memes that are happening on the internet. And the one that is related to Dwalin is his scene where he's grabbing all the cookies and digging them out of the bottom of the jar with a cookie in his mouth. And so that has created the Dwalin and his cookie jar meme with a lot of fan art and fan websites and jokes about Dwalin always grabbing the cookie jar.
You know what I noticed is that this is every dwarf is getting a food acknowledgement.
A food association?
A food association.
That is funny. In the movies, they're getting food associations. In the book, they were colored hoods. That were the only associations that made them really different.
And it's only for the hardcore fans because, most people, I didn't even notice that Beaufort takes the ham and Dwalin takes the cookies. I didn't even notice that. So these are fans watching this over and over again, be like, oh, Beaufort takes the ham. So
Hobbity Lass says, I loved him roasting lettuce on the fire.
Yeah. So
that's funny.
I see an opportunity. Dwalin getting sponsored by Bimbo Cookies or Hostess or Mother's Dairy or whatever.
I've got a question about Bifur. Do you think he got that axe in his head at Azanul-Bazar?
That's one thing that we're not talking about him
Not yet. We're not talking about him
calm
yet.
and steal Dwalin's cookies.
See? This whole internet meme is like...
So Dwalin is all about cookies.
It's Dwalin's cookies. It's all over the internet. And I love this. Keep calm and eat Dwalin's cookies.
You know what we need to do?
We
need to go to Comic-Con this year and have cookies.
for if
Dwalin cookies.
If Graham McTavish is there, that'd be great.
That would be so good. Ori and chips, Bofer and ham, Dwalin and cookies. This we could do. We could have
probably could.
We could do a cookie dwarf, cookie monster.
I don't need Cliff Notes for the dwarves, Muriel. I have my own Cliff Notes for the dwarves.
He is Cliff.
I am a living Cliff Notes for the dwarves.
Yeah.
But here's something very interesting that I want to mention to you. The whole race of dwarves was created in the beginning of time before the elves.
Before the elves.
This is one of the biggest, mind-blowing things you will learn in the Silmarillion, in the great history of this world, Middle-earth, before it was even settled as Middle-earth, in the whole land of Arda, the whole planet is named
The wizards
Arda.
exist.
The ancient powers of Valinor were there first. They're the angelic beings, who
Okay.
are the Valar, the upper level, and the Maiar, who are the lower level.
Those are the wizards.
The wizards became human forms of Maiar spirits. Yes, true. But they were all waiting for the creation of the firstborn of Iluvatar. The firstborn were going to be the elves. And it was supposed to be the elves. And yet they waited, and they dwelt in Valinor, and the Valar waited for eons, and there was still no sign of the elves or the firstborn being there yet. And then Ole got impatient, and he went into his underground, deep, cavernous workshop, and he forged life out of the stones, and he made the dwarves first. Because he was impatient, and the dwarves were made to be hardy, hardworking, and they were also made to endure the power of Melkor. That's what his idea was. Melkor, the original Dark Lord. Get it that Sauron was only one of the Maiar. Melkor, or Morgoth was his other name, he was a great higher up the hierarchy.
Where have I heard Morgoth?
He was the great Dark Lord of the Silmarillion.
But he's mentioned, isn't Morgoth discussed by in the movies by the Elrond?
Somebody says it was a Balrog of Morgoth.
Oh, yeah.
Legolas says this dialogue.
Okay.
When he speaks in the extended edition of Fellowship of the Ring, tells Cate Blanchett what happened. He fell by a Balrog of Morgoth. Now, Morgoth was the great Valar spirit who was the dark and evil one at the beginning of time, even before the First Age. But now back to the dwarves. Olli was found out, and Iluvatar came down, the great one, and he's like, "What have you done? Why have you made these dwarves first? My elves are supposed to be the firstborn. You better put them back to sleep." And so he did. Ole put all the dwarves back to sleep into the stone, under the mountains, until eons later when the elves came first. And then the dwarves were reawakened, and they were back on the earth again. It's a very interesting mythology.
They've got some...
They've always been given short shrift. Yeah, no, they've always been superseded by the elves and displaced by the elves. In a great way, the mythology is built around the core of that idea. And I don't know if it's part of dwarves' like spiritual teachings or part of their mythology within their world, but I imagine it psychologically feeds them going back in time that far. It's ancestral memory, really. Now, here's the other thing. The dwarves were stocky, strong, resistant to fire, and they were hardier than any other race. Okay, they were short. They only grew to about 4.5 feet tall, maybe 5 feet tall. And you know that hobbits were 3.5 feet. Right? But here's the most interesting thing. Dwarves could not be dominated by evil. That is why there are no dwarven Nazgul. The men of this planet, not the elves, not the dwarves, but the men could be corrupted by evil, and that's why the 9 rings had that effect on them. Dwarves, who were given 7 rings, by the Dark Lord, they could not be corrupted by their evil. It was a very interesting twist. Sauron didn't quite expect that. But all this stuff is fascinating to me, and it feeds more of the culture that Peter Jackson and his filmmaking team are trying to build in why the elves and the dwarves behave this way. So you've learned some interesting things today, haven't you? So I'm fascinated with Dwalin, but we never see a blue hood. We just see all these tattoos on him. And in that flashback sequence, we see his hair as a big mohawk, and his beard is a little bit darker, but it's definitely Graham McTavish. He's right there next to
in a mohawk,
Richard Armitage, and screaming in rage, and there's these slow motion shots of him. I love it. It's really cool. It's really cool stuff. And Peter has got that stuff from the appendix in the back of the Lord of the Rings. So we have questions.
Wait. So Dwalin is in the flashback?
Dwalin is in the flashback. Yeah. As I said a few moments ago.
Azog.
Yes, absolutely.
So he's the main guy besides Thorin. Dwalin.
Yeah. Look, there are people who are like, can we take a moment and talk about Dwalin's awesome mohawk? It's all over the place. I'm going to load this picture and show you right here.
Yeah.
Dwalin can be seen in at least 3 distinct shots in the Battle of Azanul Bazaar.
So does he have a bigger role to play? Because that's kind of significant, since he was there at the Battle of Azog.
Balrog of Morgoth? What did you say? They're taking the hobbits to Isengard. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Muriel. That's good. Here you go. That's him.
Wow, he does have a mohawk.
That's Dwalin, right there next to Thorin.
Really?
Yeah, that's him.
Huh.
Now, I wish we could show you guys, but as soon as we get the internet reconnected, we will show you. We'll pull it right up. You guys need to see this. So, somebody asked in the chat room about 7 or 8 minutes ago, do you think that Bombur will ever talk in any of the 3 films?
I hope so.
I don't know. Stephen Hunter seems to indicate that there may be some dialogue in a later film, but maybe it will be saved as a big joke at the end of the 3rd film. I don't know. Who knows? But what's very interesting, there's that Bluebeard. There's the guy in the wacky picture who's trying to do a version of Dwalin.
Huh.
But that's the way the professor describes him in the book.
Can y'all see that? Yeah. That's some hardcore stuff. Walking around Comic-Con with a blue beard like that, not many people are going to get it.
That's really impressive.
Okay, so basically, he's a second-born child
of Fundin. And here's one of my favorite representations of the character from the 1977 animated film The Hobbit. It was produced by Rankin and Bass. That was one of the character designs for Balin. Right, and Dwalin, they both looked exactly alike. And then there's something else kind of weird. They designed Balin to look exactly like Dwalin, except one of them has glasses.
So why
has glasses? He is supposed to have a different colored hood than Balin, who has a red hood.
So do we know why Dwalin was at the Battle of Azog?
It's called the Battle of Azanul Bazaar.
Sure.
Yeah. And do we know why he was there?
Yeah.
No, we don't know why he was there, except imagine that these dwarves were living together trying to reestablish, their home in ancient Moria, and they were family. It was a family thing.
That guy, in a completely heterosexual way, that man is an attractive man.
Yeah, Mr. Graham McTavish is a big, strapping lad, I will say. I will say yes, that's
you
true.
don't want to piss him off in a bar.
You'd rather him be your friend. Did you see his weight training before and after pictures? Look closely. Right here. Oh, there's some fan art that's really, really good that shows these 2 characters together. But there's
dude's got
there's a picture of Dwalin before and after. There you go. Take a look at that. This is when he took on his fitness training, and I heard from the other cast members of The Hobbit that they were an audience captivated by Graham's stories of protein, fitness training, more protein. There he did. He did.
Feeling Dwalin, or is it Bombur? Oh dear.
Constant stories of his fitness training regimen and his very aggressive nutrition approach. But that's ironic because all he does is eat cookies in the.
And he's a dwarf, and you're buried under mountains of dwarven makeup and beards and hair.
But it is a great design. The tattoos and the fact that none of the other dwarves are bald. Just him.
I
think it's really cool.
I want a Hobbit game where you design your character and you can choose from tattoos and bald and hair and beard. Because you can do that in most in fantasy RPGs, like WoW, of course, and of course you can do that in Soul Calibur for fighting games. It'd be cool to design to create all the dwarves in Soul Calibur. That would be kind of cool.
Ooh.
I bet you no one's done that. I bet you no one has done the whole company.
There's also some fan art called Slash.
Shipping.
There's some Slash art. And you know what Slash is? In the world of fan fiction, it's when they try to build a somewhat absurd homoerotic relationship between two characters, and they call it... It began with Star Trek. Trust me. It began with Kirk/Spock. Or it would be Kirk/Uhura, or Kirk/Scotty, any of the other members of the crew.
And the new way to say it is ship. You ship two characters. You ship them together. You put them in a relationship.
Yeah, they're packed and shipped together. They're in a ship.
No, they're in a relationship.
Yeah, I'm making another joke. Yes, okay. They're in a relationship. So there's even
it took me a while to figure out shipping.
This fan art of Dwalin and Thorin really blew me away.
I don't want to look at that.
That's really blew me away. It's a bit much.
Okay, so
I know it's a bit much. But
why was Dwalin at the Battle of Azog?
I can't believe it.
And nobody else was there.
Thorin's.
Who else was it? Who else was there?
At the Battle of Azanul-Bazar?
Yeah.
Well, gosh. Let me see here. Since I've got so many historical notes and things right in front of me, it says here that Dwalin, it doesn't say anything in Wikipedia about Dwalin taking part in the Battle of Azanul-Bazar, but it probably does in this book.
Or are we sure that Peter Jackson didn't take license?
We're not sure.
In that...
We're not sure. It may be in the appendix at the back of the book.
Okay, you know what? This has been bugging me. What is the significance of him showing up first to Bilbo's?
That's a good question. What is the significance of Dwalin showing up first?
Yeah. There has to be, Tolkien doesn't leave anything to chance, and Peter Jackson definitely doesn't. So... what is the significance of Dwalin showing up first?
I don't know if there is any significance. It's just... it's more likely that Gandalf had a plan, and most of these things we see in the book are really Gandalf executing his plans and pulling strings behind the scenes. And there's a way that Gandalf, I believe, had the dwarves arrive at Bilbo's place with different timing. And he may have just arbitrarily chosen Dwalin to be the first one. I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm quite curious. It's all in Gandalf trying to establish a certain timing of things.
Tolkien girl wants to be a game designer, wants to get to... Here's a little secret. Just become a game designer. Save your money and use it on rent while you're becoming a game designer.
The orcs, the ongoing battle of the dwarves and the orcs culminated in the Battle of Azanul-Bazar. That was the big one. That was the big final battle of the dwarves and the orcs.
Dwarves and orcs.
Yeah, the battle of the dwarves and the orcs.
Before the Lonely Mountain.
Yeah, way before the Lonely Mountain.
For the Lonely Mountain?
No. Outside the gates of Moria.
Oh, Moria.
Yeah. Moria is under the mountain, and Azanul-Bazar is right outside the gates of Moria in the valley outside.
The same gate that Speak Friend and Enter?
No, that's the western side of the gate. We're talking about the east gate when they get out the other side of the
mountains. So there's a mountain that Moria resides in, and the Fellowship...
That's Carathras, yes.
The Fellowship try to go over it, and then they say, no. And so they go in the west entrance, but earlier...
The Watcher in the Water and the doors on the west gate of Moria are on that side, where Rivendell and the Shire are.
So why didn't they go in the east entrance?
Because they were already on the west side of the mountains, boy. My friend. Young man.
But, so here at the east entrance to Moria, there is, they have this battle with orcs.
Yeah, that it happened. They were on the east side where the battle happened.
Okay.
Did
they lose?
At first the battle went against the dwarves, but with the aid of the dwarves of the Iron Hills who arrived late, the orcs were defeated and Azog was killed. Another artistic license that the screenwriters are taking. Azog was killed in the book and in the notes of the appendices, but in Peter's film, Azog lives, so that we have a villain in the first film to chase Thorin around. Azog was killed in the Battle of Azanul-Bazar. And it says, many dwarves were killed, including a number of members of the royal family of Durin's folk. The orcs of the Misty Mountains suffered even greater losses and were so weakened by the battle that they did not recover their strength for over a century. Also called the Battle of Dimril Dale by elves and men. So right at the moment in the movie when Gandalf dies and all the remaining fellowship go outside, they're on the east side of Moria.
That's the east side?
And that is the Dimril Dale. That's the exact location where you see Sam crying and you see Merry and Pippin weeping.
Yeah. And the Man of Steel trailer music.
And Aragorn says, Legolas, get them up.
And he says it weird.
And
Legolas,
get them up. And Boromir says, give them a moment, for pity's sake. They're on the exact hillside where you see Thorin and Azog are battling. Yes.
Whoa!
This is what happens when he doesn't read the books.
No.
This is exciting.
Okay, this is exactly why I don't read the books, because there should have been that connection in the movie. I would have loved the movie more, and the movie would have pleased audiences and critics better if he had just done some of that stuff. Here's the other thing.
But Balin tells the story that we went back to Moria.
I don't need to tell the story. Just show me the story.
He does show it. He says Moria. He says it. We're in Moria, and then Peter Jackson shows us Moria right outside the East Gate. You didn't recognize it as the East Gate, but he sets up the story perfectly, and then Peter shows
Smeagol and Deagle fight, you don't say the river. Smeagol and Deagle are in a boat and in the water. No, you just show it. You just play it like a movie. You don't go Discovery Channel. Back in the day, in the age of dinosaurs and Azog.
It's the
No. Okay. First off, I want to say that the East exit in Fellowship of the Ring, where you are caught up in the emotion of Gandalf falling into shadow, and they come out, and that landscape was epic. That landscape was gorgeous.
Yes, it was.
The colors of the rocks and the sharpness and the contrast, the darks, the whites of the white rock and the darks of the shadow, that it just looked like a black and white moment in the film. And
that Tolkien girl says, "Don't call it Man of Steel music."
I was taken away. I was blown away. That was one of the things that when I'm sold on Lord of the Rings. That shot of those rocks coming out of the caves into this huge boulders. Why didn't they do anything with that landscape equivalent in The Hobbit? They're just like, hey, let me throw you in a battle. I'm not going to show you where the battle is. I'm not going to explain what its connection to anything else. I'm like, there's a battle. I would have appreciated that battle more instead of like a stupid little flashback. I would have appreciated much more if this is the battle, this is the location that you as a film goer are already aware of, and let me give you context.
I thought the context was there in the only way it needed to be shown, and that was Balin, played by the wonderful Ken Stott. And I thought that Balin, the character, set up the story. And Bilbo's at the fireside listening, and everyone's listening to this moment where pull up around the campfire, Balin's going to tell a story, and here we go to the flashback. Being an avid reader of the books, I knew it was the same place and the same location. Being an average moviegoer, the only way you would have known it is if Peter had shot the Fellowship of the Ring all those years ago, and if somebody had included a mention and said, this is the spot of Azanulbazar where we fought against Azog.
Azanulbazar was
that didn't
never
happen.
Mentioned in
2000, in 2001, Peter and his team didn't know that they were going to be making
a
Hobbit movie. They didn't know they were going to have to make a Hobbit movie in the future, so there wasn't any mention of it. In the books, we actually have...
That's why I think...
Glowing talks all about it, and he takes Frodo down to the Mirror and lets him look into the water of Khaled Zaram, and it's a beautiful moment in the book. It's not in Fellowship of the Ring movie.
That's why I think Peter Jackson's going to pull a George Lucas.
No, I don't know that.
And add scenes. No. This is where the Battle of Azog happened. I'll bet you Fellowship is going to... I bet you there's going to be new scenes. I'm telling you. Because Tolkien did it. he revised The Hobbit after The Lord of the Rings came out. He went back and
that's
revised
funny.
The Hobbit to create a better consistency. I bet you Peter Jackson's going to do the same thing. And then we'll get to see Fellowship on the Ring again, on the big screen again, with added scenes, and it's going to be 4.5 hours long.
Well, all right, she makes a point. Tolkien girl, I appreciate your salty...
None of the scenery was used to its full potential.
Wait, Weathertop was recreated exactly, and you knew you were back in Weathertop, and you praised the filmmakers in The Hobbit for taking us back to another interesting...
It doesn't take much!
Creepy scene with the villain in Weathertop, right?
It doesn't take much.
But Azanul-Bazar was shown in the film, and it looked to me
Azanul-Bazar has no impact on anything in my world.
That's why Balin didn't name it as that. He named it as the Mines of Moria. He said it, and Balin said it like that, and you knew you were at Moria.
I don't know.
But you think you were at the Westgate? Did you think that
No, I got no relation of with the same place that the hobbits come running out, or the same place that Battle of Azog was happening.
Battle of Azog. It's not the Battle of Azog. Don't call it that, Tenorest.
Look. Maybe because in Fellowship of the Ring we're told we have to leave these parts before nightfall, otherwise the orcs will come out.
Yes.
And in The Hobbit, the orcs are out, and it's not nightfall.
In The Hobbit, they do a color palette change very, very quickly from sunset to dusk, and it happens a little too fast. It happens a little bit too fast.
It shouldn't be at sunset at all. It should be
after dark. It should be at night because, that's the way it is in the book. But they wanted to have these beautiful sunset shots where Bilbo says his speech to Thorin and says, look, I know you doubted me. I know you always have. That meaningful monologue. They didn't want to have that meaningful monologue in the dark. They wanted to have.
I'll bet you this battle of I'll bet you that
Azanul-Bazar.
I'll bet you Azog did not live in the first. If The Hobbit was two movies instead of 3. I bet you the original intent was Azog not living. I bet you Peter Jackson originally intended to follow the book, and Azog dies there. But because he had to make a third movie, because they turned it into a trilogy, if you noticed, all of the scenes with Azog are completely 100% CG.
And we know that they were added in the final month.
They were added
production.
in the final month.
The very last, and they were a rush job. They've admitted that it was
it's a rush job.
We know.
You can tell. And all of the scenes of Azog and anything that has to do with Azog is 100% computer generated. There were no new shots, and I'll bet you by golly that originally Azog was supposed to die, but then when they decided, how am I going to make a villain in the first movie? I'll bet you it was just
Look, the orcs can endure daylight, but barely. They hate it. The orcs hate daylight.
Okay.
It's not like they're going to turn to stone like stone trolls do. Okay. Just don't worry about that. But orcs had been rebred and genetically changed by Saruman to be Uruk-hai, and they were resistant to sunlight all day long.
Right.
That was later on in the Lord of the Rings trilogy when that happened. But these orcs of the Misty Mountains, they were occupying Moria, and the dwarves wanted their kingdom back, and so they took care of business at the battle.
Okay.
And that's what the Battle of Dwarves and Orcs was all about. And Azog dies in the books, but we had to have that villain in the first film, so the film keeps Azog around.
Were they battling over control of Moria because of the mithril in there?
All the riches. Oh, yes. And the ongoing hatred between dwarves and orcs that goes on and on and on for centuries.
Well, yeah, I mean, people hate, but there's got to be a reason that they're battling over Moria.
Hobbity Lass says, I didn't make the connection either. I knew it was Moria, but not the same place as Fellowship of the Ring.
Thank you. It would have had a deeper impact on me if they had made it crystal clear, just like it was crystal clear that was Weathertop.
Well,
they didn't even need to do anything Weathertop, just like, that's familiar.
Murtaugh says, that's not true, Justin.
So, what do the orcs want mithril? No, they're not interested in riches. Like, what were the orcs fighting for? That's what I want to. What was Azog fighting for?
Well, orcs want to kill everyone. Period. They have They've been bred with hatred in their hearts by the dark powers of Morgoth to have nothing but animosity and violence and destruction in the wake of everything they do. They don't create. They never created any original artwork. They are clever and crafty when they need to build something, but they don't create art. They don't create anything. They destroy everything. And they were made and bred as slaves of the will of the greater evil that drives them to do what they do. And so, trying to explain the motivation of evil goblins and orcs here on today's Torn Tuesday. Welcome to Tolkienisms 101 with Clifford Broadway and Justin Sewell. Whoa, hello. Did we lose it? Freeze, they froze. Bam. Oh, are we offline?
What happened there?
Now we're going to move on to Balin.
Oi.
Miriel means jewel woman.
They froze. Come on. What happened? Bummer. We were on a roll, too.
Yes, we were. God, it was fucking great.
So
it's really fun. Very good, very good. Keep it up. Keep it up. It's super good. Here you go.
Ah, come on. The chat's still going.
You're back live. Toothpaste. See, yes. They were watching me complain about the toothpaste commercial. So
I appreciate that.
No, I want to see. Someone type in, what is it? Peter's Dragon?
Yes.
The t-shirt design?
T-shirt.
Peter's Dragon, which is
like
lovely.
That?
I love it. I'm going to help you pack some more shirts when you have something to go out. Clean teeth. Oh, everyone's watching the commercial. They don't know they're live. It took us half a minute. It took us just half a minute.
It's a little back. Well, I rescued that. Jeez.
Thank you for doing a rescue without shutting it all down.
Again, we're in the YouTube live beta test.
And you guys might need to refresh your browser or whatever you do, but we couldn't shut it down from here.
Eric Galen uses Listerine, but that's a mouthwash. I wouldn't use Listerine as my only teeth cleaning
Try to use something without alcohol in the mouthwash. It's better for you.
Yeah.
Oh, look, everyone's saying Peace Dragon, Peace Dragon. Yay, okay, we're definitely back.
Okay, so we were back at the fact
that... Back to the conversation, you were asking me why were the orcs there? Why were the dwarves even there?
Why were they battling at the gates of Moria?
In the greatest and most magnificent of all dwarven kingdoms, even though that is contrary to Bilbo's statement in the opening narration of the film, but the biggest and greatest of all dwarven kingdoms was Moria. And they called it Khazad-dûm. So it's kind of redundant when Gandalf says, to the bridge of Khazad-dûm, because everybody knows, it's the bridge of Moria. But anyways, the dwarves built it. They lived there for centuries and centuries and centuries. They discovered Mithril. They mined it, and it was valuable. They had very friendly, unusually friendly relations with the elves of Rivendell and the elves of Eregion, which is the whole region to the west of the mountains. And then they delved too greedily and too deep. You know what they